Then I think about, is this really it also? Like, is my imagination only as far as it could go based off of the past? And that's like, it's been such a theme in my mind where I would love to be more clear and cleansed so that I can imagine larger things, larger visions.
I've been looking on the screenshot barrage of your Instagram, which is good. You're like the perfect like subject for interview because you're very communicative, like in your social media, like to the point where the thing about the beverage, I was like, oh yeah, I need like 3 beverages around me at all times, or else I'm just very upset because I need the range, I need the choices.
I love using social media like it's my journal. And I'm
Yeah,
like, sometimes when I'm high or something, which is not
yeah,
very often, I'm like, am I sharing too much? I'll get like paranoid. But I don't, but then like when I'm sober, I'm like, sometimes I feel like I'm acting like I'm high when I'm sober.
yeah. It's a weird feeling, I think, because I think through using social media, I feel so trained to act a specific way or let people see a specific side of me. And then whenever I post a thing I find really funny, I'm always like, "Oh wait, is this gonna go?" But it's like it's me, so I should be okay with using my little space on the internet to
Right.
do
And the
fun.
way I see it is like, when I am attracted to certain pages or certain
Yeah,
person on Instagram, I really
yeah,
like the fact that they're really personal, like
right,
people that I really look up to and stuff. They're super personal. And I'm like,
yeah,
oh, okay. And in that way, I think that they allow me to be the same
yeah. Wow, that
and
was
open.
very nice. Hello everybody, welcome to the Procrastination Radio Show. I'm your host, Ian Complex, and this is the first episode of 2023 of the new season, of the new era of the show. And I thought, what better way to bring it in with this very, 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 very special guest. Papatson, welcome to the show.
Thank
How are you?
you.
How's your week? How's your new year?
um, I feel like that's been a question where I haven't found the right summary when someone
Mm.
asks how I
Mhm.
am. I think
Mhm.
that's probably a theme for a lot of
Yeah,
people during this, really odd time in history.
yeah.
But um, it's been good. It's been a lot of inner work, I think,
Mm, mm,
as always. I actually was looking back at, certain things that I was writing because I was getting a new journal
yeah,
and like notebooks and stuff yesterday. So I was like reading back to all my notebooks. And I was like, I've been saying the same thing for a long time. I was like, I've been at this inner work for quite a while. And I'm
mm,
like, wait, have I gotten anywhere? I think I
yeah,
have, but
yeah.
yes, it's been definitely just a lot of transformations. And I think this year more so just getting my focus on with a lot of things in terms of getting my art to where I want it to be, getting my
Mm,
projects to where I want it to be, and um, yeah, so much more. Also, mental health has been
yeah.
a huge thing too.
So, how does I notice a lot of the things you do creatively are very physical. How does that pair with maybe if you're not doing as well mentally? Like how do those match up together? Do you have to turn one off to focus? Like the inner work has to pause for a while to get the art off, or are they tied together?
Hmm. There has been many ways that art serves my state of mind and my state
Mm,
of being. I think
mm,
that there are so many times where art helped me process my sadness, right? And
yeah,
art helped me sort of honestly, okay, one thing I can say for sure is that
yeah.
if I'm happy, I don't fucking want to do art. Like I, I would rather like go
Really
dancing or like partying. Yeah, for sure.
interesting. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. If I'm not in like an
Yeah.
introspective element, then I'd rather be living life, And
Interesting.
And yeah, just being present in the moment. Not saying that processing is not present, but I think it's just in a different way. Um I think that you utilize art to process heavier emotions and things that really needs attention, to pay attention to. So, but yeah, art comes in all forms. I think
Yeah.
when I was in college, I went to school for painting, and I
Mm.
was painting really, really angsty type of
Yeah.
work. I can
Yeah.
show you some. I'll send you some,
Yeah.
and you can
Yeah.
like
Please.
maybe show it. I don't know,
Yeah.
but it's honestly was very, very angry, and when I was looking back, it was really hard to look at all the
Mm.
paintings in my parents' garage because it was just not pretty to look at,
Mm.
and I think transitioning from that, and it took me quite a while to really want to paint something beautiful and something that's
Wow.
even thinking of painting as something that's like can be pleasant to look at, right? And
Yeah.
so I think during that time, I was really utilizing art to really purge out what I was
Mm.
going through. And a lot of
Yeah.
that's like generational trauma, a lot of like abuse that I was experiencing
Yeah.
as a kid, and, immigration, which is like, was really hard on me and my family. So, um, and then, I think there was one time when there was a boyfriend of mine who was like,
Mm.
oh, I was painting something super ugly. I was really into painting like ugly self portraits. Like I was like painting myself like in these ugly ways, like
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
like so gnarly
Did
and
you did
like
you feel that
bleeding
way
and
in the
like,
moment? Like, could you tell like I'm doing this on purpose, or was that just the way it was coming out?
I don't even think I had an awareness to think that it was like on
Interesting.
purpose or not.
Yeah.
I was really in my early 20s, I was like acting out of impulses. Like I was like
Yeah.
very much like just saying how I felt, just
Right.
doing things on the fly, like
Mm.
just in some sense I was way more raw and like truth, almost, not as considerate because I was
Yeah.
younger,
Yeah.
but at
Brutal.
the same
Yeah.
time, like I really fuck with her in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
It was like looking back,
Right.
I was just doing things just like because I had to,
Yeah.
and so I was like painting at this person I was in a relationship with, and he was just like, how are you going to sell that? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I'm not looking to sell, like, fuck selling work,
Mm. Mm.
and I still do think that sometimes,
Yeah.
like my inner kind of voice kind of say
Yeah.
that still. Um, but I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, look at this person's work. Like, they paint from happiness.
Mm.
And I think that was one of the many kind of points that I realized that I was painting from just pain
Yeah.
and just in that moment, not saying that I was like sad all the time, I had
Right.
fun and all of those things,
So
but
it was fueling it.
yeah.
Yeah. Did you have a fear of the work maybe not speaking as strongly to you or to others if it was coming out of the place of the happiness when you're dancing around, like maybe it came out a little too pretty? Like, were you again aware of that kind of coming in? And it would be interesting to see how you deal with that now, if you've overcome that, if that was a thing.
Yeah. Well, my attraction to things are so different now. I remember
Mm.
I was even annoyed at pretty work, pretty
Mm.
artwork
Interesting.
stuff back
Interesting.
then.
Yeah.
Wasn't really vibing with it because it wasn't
Yeah.
like honest to how I was feeling, and
Mm.
how
Mm.
I operate. So
Yeah.
I was just not saying that, I don't know. Now I sound like I was like a crazy person,
No,
but
no, it makes sense, but it's like I don't think I've ever heard anyone say it, but I think in some ways I I feel very like it makes sense to me because I think sometimes when I see art that feels too clean or too pretty, there is a not judgmental, but there is a jump that makes me want to be like, oh, maybe this isn't authentic because it does feel so
yeah, yeah.
not simple. It's hard to find the words to like describe it, but
Right. And I mean, now I love simple and
yeah,
like even
Yeah.
pretty stuff, like things was hanging on my bed. I'll show it
Yeah.
to you later, but this
Yeah.
this artist Ruby, who is just always painting about enlightenment and
Yeah.
graphic work that is just gorgeous, right?
Yeah.
And like that's how I decorate my house, right? And
Yeah.
like you can see a lot of sort of I wish I can show you around.
You know, just
We can do that
yeah, yeah, yeah,
eventually,
yeah, yeah,
but yeah, it's now it just makes it, not that it makes sense, but it's just what I gravitate towards. But
mm,
I yeah, now I want to paint things that would be helpful to others even.
mm,
Now I'm able to step outside of myself and being like, oh, this will really help someone process,
yeah,
or feel happy when they look at it,
right,
outside of, how it's making me feel.
right.
Um, but beforehand, I don't think I really had, yeah, I couldn't really step outside of myself in that way when I started really taking painting seriously.
That's really interesting. Did you have any aversion to the way that painting was taught in school, or did it feel like
In
different?
school, we learn a lot about color theory and how to paint with oil, which was
Yeah.
really amazing. I think oil is it's so it is really romantic because you're
Mm,
like kind of
mm.
in like, you're literally like inhaling the thing, like you become
Right.
the turpentine and like you're
You're
like you
there.
and you're yeah you like have to become one with oil, I
That's
feel like.
funny. Yeah. Oh,
But
man.
like I used to, yeah, fucking oil, and I mean, I think, just poking fun at the fact it's like, oh, if I'm painting in oil, it's like
Yeah.
it's serious now,
Yeah.
it's like,
It's a thing.
but yeah, a lot of that. So a lot of like technical stuff too.
Mm,
You learn
mm.
how to stretch your canvases. You learn how to, write artist statement, how to talk about your work and
Yeah.
things like that. And then on the other side, in terms of conceptual development of your work, it's very open ended. I think really depends on who is your instructor, and you sort of choose your classes based off
Yeah.
of which teacher is teaching. And we would be in this class as like a painting studio is 6 hours a
Right.
day, and
Right.
you're just there to do
That's
your
crazy.
work, and then the instructor would come by and like talk
Yeah.
about your work. And more than anything, I think what's really beautiful about having been in an art school was that I was able to be surrounded by so many beautiful people and really supportive friends, who
Yeah.
I still talk to until this day. And also space was really important.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to have gone to a state school in Boston,
Mm.
Mass Art. If anyone out there went
Hey,
to Mass
I did.
Art, yes, there the space is for painting
Okay.
department. I don't know how
Yeah.
they got all the funding to do that because design, like it's just like such an uneven
Yeah.
um dis- uneven distribution to the space. I remember like sculpture majors, they would be like, how come we get a desk and you get a whole cubicle?
Dang.
I'd be
Art
like,
beef.
we don't know.
Art beef is crazy.
Did you go to design school or did you go to any kind of art
I
school?
feel like I'm in design school now. I was originally in college for film, and I think it was very helpful because I think that was my original path that I thought I was gonna go down. Like this was for sure the way that I was gonna spend the rest of my life just doing film. And then a friend reached out since I was been doing work on the show for a few years, been designing and all that stuff, and he kind of was like, "Hey, like we have this offer for you to be a designer," and my fear was I wasn't good enough to be a graphic designer professionally. I didn't have the chops. I didn't, like you said, know about the equivalent to stretching the canvas or setting up my documents or files or whatever. Um, I think I was just afraid of. I feel like learning is a very intimate and very vulnerable place to be, especially when you have to learn and then perform and then be judged and maintain clients and all that good stuff at the same time. So I think I was just scared of that. I was scared of people having to put trust in me for that. So I do think I'm actively learning how to be a better designer and a better mm, a better creative, I guess, right now. It feels very um it's still work, which is a conversation I did want to have to you about work. It's still work, and it's still
Hmm.
draining a lot of times, and it's very rewarding a lot of times. And I think as people who are typically creatives, I think in my experience, some of the people who are either commissioning work or directing the work tend to think a creative is just supposed to get down and do the work and not complain about it. But we're still people, and we have opinions and ways of working these things. And I wonder, for you, do you enjoy when your art feels like work, and what's your experience with the workplace in reference to art?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I said this recently to a friend of mine where I mentioned about how I was almost like my art protector in a lot of
Mm,
ways. Like I was
mhm,
really keeping my art away from making it a profession
mm,
because I felt like if I were to monetize from my work, it would like my work would be tainted in some
yeah,
way. So
yeah,
I was like protecting it from all of that, right?
yeah,
So, and in a lot of ways, it was a blessing, right? Because I was able to utilize sort of my skills in different ways. When I came out of art school, I wasn't really planning to be an artist in the sense that I wanted to make work to
yeah,
sell because I
yeah.
never thought of my work being put in the market like
Right.
directly in that
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
I didn't technically know what I want to do, or wanted to do. But I kept myself away from that, or I kept my work away from it being a part of my job.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I guess in that way, then I think to look back, it really created a good foundation for me to do organizing work and
Mm,
being sort of like, even coming to creating my own collective and like curating my own shows and being on the other part of art that is still really fulfilling and like
yeah.
um, just surrounded by art still.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, when I graduated, I was assisting artists. I was assisting two painters in
Mm,
Boston,
mm,
and I hated it because because I was doing things. Okay, think of yourself as like let's say if you're a designer, right?
yeah, yeah.
And if you want to hire an assistant, you would kind of want the assistant to do what you feel like
Right.
is kind of what the things that you don't want to do, like the
Yeah,
things that
yeah.
you would rather spend your time doing something else. So I was doing, stretching the canvases was like super hard on my hands. And like I sound like a baby, but at the
No,
same
no.
time, I was stretching like 20 canvases a day. And it was like a lot to do. And then I was painting for one of the artists, which I mean, not to talk badly about the artist at all. The artist she's incredible. She's
Mm,
like a mother, a head of the fine arts departments in like all women's college, just killing
mm,
it, right?
mm,
But she didn't necessarily have time, and that's why I came in and assisted her work. But I hated it, quit, and then I traveled across the country. I was in North Cal for a little bit, trimming, and saw a lot of sides of humanity.
mm.
That was It was a very dark side of how the world worked like works in real life. And then I came back and I was, doing backstage work. I was doing, I was a stagehand, and then I became a wardrobe assistant for this arena that had a bunch of musicians, like all the tours, like really big world tours would come by every year, and I was doing that for a while. And in a sense, like the work was so technical that I was able to kind of utilize my mind even during the work. So I was like being really inspired from what I saw, but what I was doing was seemingly sort of really, fast paced, yes, and it was long hours, yes, but at the same time you didn't really have to utilize like a lot of your brain. To be honest, it was like, it was, I was literally, wardrobe assistants for like musicians, you literally just doing laundry for famous people.
So interesting.
Yes. And and not to knock it, I had so much fun, and like it was a match of where I was in my life, right? And like I loved it. I worked with really amazing like bands, and so that was really cool. And and during that time I was doing the wardrobe stuff, I was able to come up with the idea for my collective, which was really
about that.
cool. Well, it's like no longer a thing anymore, so I don't know.
Okay.
And like we had a pretty bad falling out, which maybe is a good thing to talk about, but I don't know.
Where
we
were
can
you
cut
at?
it out.
Yeah. Just this whole part is bleeps. But where were you in that time? Because it seems like you were doing a lot of things. So where were you mentally to be able to think, like, was it out of necessity, like I need more help, or did you just have the idea?
Honestly, I think wholeheartedly it was out of necessity in a lot of ways, because I was in a pretty abusive relationship. Like during all of that, I was like, was in New York, but still was like coming back to Connecticut to work and stuff. And I was like dating this person that was really toxic to me. And I was like toxic to myself as well, all of that, right? But, and then we broke up. And during the time, so then I was like, it was just needed for me to be self-efficient again, and like really love myself. And the collective was called Self-Love Social Club. And outside of all of that, the breakup was pretty bad, but also I was like addicted to like partying. I was, I was like I was doing the whole thing. I was like, going out every weekend, just like drinking a lot, doing drugs, and like, and I was in, in this pretty small town in Connecticut called Norwich, Connecticut, which is like, there was nothing to do, right? So like the lifestyle of the kids there was just going to a bar and drinking. And there's like 2 casinos, which is like, you can go and party further all night, So that's like the environment that I grew up in. And anything is accessible to you in terms of like any kind of drugs you ever want, and that's just what it was. And I had a lot of fun, but also there was a deep healing that I needed to do, and I was recognizing the pattern really so soon, right after I broke it off with, the person that was essentially was a reflection of who I was, right? And I was losing a lot of control in so many ways. So I wanted to regain control back, and also wanted to do something that was super meaningful, and it had always been a dream of mine to curate a show, and just dive right in. And I had amazing friends. At the time I was like, all my friends were super supportive. They like helped put the show together. Most of them were the co-founders and collaborators of the show. So
interesting. Did you with all the negative things going around at the time, were you able to count the wins, like the collective and being able to put on a show and through all of that, like was that clear to you at the time?
Yeah, I was. Wait, ask me one more time. Was it clear?
Yeah, did were you able to outside of the weight of everything, like of the whole situation with the breakup and maybe the stress of working at the time, were you able to be like, okay, cool, I have this small win that was mine? Because I know I have a problem with that. I guess that question was coming from a very not selfish place, but I just wanted to know because I think sometimes I can get so wrapped up in the totality of everything that's going on.
Yeah, yeah.
So the small things that happen to me don't really register until a lot later. So I just was
Hmm.
wondering if that was a similar situation for you.
I think pretty much it was right away. I realized that it was just a beautiful night. There's like 100 people that showed up.
Wow.
We had a really good time, even though there was a lot in terms of like the organizing part that could
Yeah.
have been better, and
Yeah.
that's something that we learn as we go, right?
Mm-hmm.
As curators and organizers, but I recognized right away that it really was what the community needed.
Yeah.
And there was this like beautiful documentation of it. And then in real time, also, it was just the energy was just amazing. This was in Brooklyn, New York,
Mm.
at the
Mm.
Living Gallery. I don't know if it's still a thing,
Yeah.
um, but oh my god, recently their Instagram account was hacked and they like messaged
Oh.
me and they were like, hey, apply to this grant or something. And
Yeah.
then you like have to put in your credit card information. And I
Which
was like, wait.
obviously, like, yeah, okay, seems seems nice and safe there.
There's a lot happened right with the scamming
They were going
during the
hard.
pandemic, yeah.
They were going crazy. Yeah, it
Were
was.
you scammed at one point?
I was, I kind of went the opposite
Close to it?
direction, and I didn't trust anybody like sending links to things. So I was like, you have to text me this link.
Mm.
If you know me, I was like, say my name, say my like my childhood name, nickname or something, and then
Mm.
'cause I just even if it was like a YouTube link, I didn't want to chance it and get my stuff hacked because I was like, okay, this account is connected to this and this and this and this, and I don't want this to happen. So it was a very weird time, but I know people was they was getting their bread in a bunch of ways off
Yeah.
the Instagram accounts.
Yeah. So it's definitely it was a thing. But
Yeah,
to go back to that a little bit too,
yeah,
like even though I recognized what was accomplished right away, but I think the work was still continuing, right? Like there
mm,
was a lot
mm,
of conversation what we needed to have the team. There
yeah,
was, just in terms of growing in that concept of self-love also was like
mm-hmm,
was just a lot. It was like
yeah,
a lot to do for sure. It
yeah,
was a lot of responsibilities, and that was when like even the concept of self love was starting. There wasn't a lot of conversation about that then.
yeah,
And now it's like
everywhere.
if it's everywhere.
Yeah,
It's like as if you're like yeah, it's like a verb or something. Like oh,
yeah,
let's Google it. It's like let's self love
right,
that.
right.
That
Yeah.
will fix it. Like self
How do
love
you
it.
feel about that? Just kind of everything being in the open like that. Like I think it's cool for
Mm-hmm.
the perspective of mental health and everything, but I think
Yeah, I think it's really incredible. I think that like the wave that it
yeah,
created,
yeah,
to kind of tuning back into self, and I mean on side note, right? I'm like, oh, because the collective ended and I would start seeing like t-shirts that says like
yeah,
self-love club, all
yeah.
these
You're like,
things. And
yeah,
I was like, oh my god, that's a font I use,
yeah, yeah,
like that like infographic, like you
yeah,
stole my shit,
yeah,
But I was like, no, I can't do that, right? Because it's
man.
like I yeah, anyway. So just to just yes.
I can't
But
start no beef. I gotta all peace and love. I can't.
I was like, wait, I want
Yeah, yeah,
one. I didn't make one though. I could have.
yeah,
But I mean in a sense it's beautiful and then
yeah,
there's, on the same note of investigating more what's underneath, you know, because self-love is not just the end all be all journey by any means, because I think that sometimes, with the t-shirts, like it becomes very capitalistic sort of things that you can just grab and own, right? And I think that self-love for me was once a very large concept that I couldn't really comprehend. And then now that I think that I have come to this place where I realize that it's only a small part of the foundation of what's to come in terms of the revolution, in terms of being a part of the collective growth and consciousness, you know. So there's size to things. I think that it's good that it was popularized, but at the same time it's just like, what is the intention that it's coming from? Because if it's not including all parts of what it is, then it's just kind of it's just not doing all there is that it's supposed to do. I don't know if that makes sense.
That made perfect sense. I like the way you put that. And speaking a little bit about, you mentioned moving forward. I was doing some research on you, and I found this website, and I'm gonna try to read it and get through this. I practiced a little bit, trying not to trip over my words, but you said, first and foremost, I'm an artist. I'm here to create and envision beautiful words. First and foremost, I'm a learner. I'm here to understand, expand interconnections. I'm here to love, to grow, and not be fearful of challenges, no matter what I do. I implement these principles: 1, a sense of nourishment; 2, a deep reflection; 3, a direction forward. And I notice a lot, even in our conversations before, you speak of the future and kind of planning ahead and thinking ahead. And even then, you referenced moving together as a collective. When did that fascination of preparedness come from? Where did that want to be ready for the future come from?
Honestly, it was found at the brim after survival mode.
That's what. See?
Ending.
I like that. I like that a lot. I like that a lot.
Yes. Because in survival mode, there's always the urge of, there's an understanding that you need community and you need the future, but you're unable to strategize anything in that realm because you're just thinking of what's next and what's tomorrow, right? And majority of your energy is spent on the past and how much it has hurt you. So I would say, when I started thinking about the future and building the future was when I'm able to regulate myself enough to get out of survival mode and being able to sit and just take a deep breath and say, all right, let's imagine what's next outside of that.
There's something about the way you deliver ideas that feel like a hug on my brain. I'm just like, you understand me. And I like, it's funny. We were talking before about how I feel like the really weird analogy, but like we're all in this relationship with art, and the polyamorous relationship with art.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes you find people who specifically like scratch your itch, like your specific communication itch. Because I don't think personally it's very interesting communication right now, but I think on a different level, communicating ideas and coming together and building something as kind of one unit is very difficult. But I find it so beautiful the way that you are able to live in the moments you've had in the past, and always are thinking forward. And it's very amazing to always hear what you have to say, something so many thank you for the way you communicate your ideas, because it's just amazing. It's really good.
It's my pleasure. I think it's been, and the feeling's very mutual. That's why we're in this space. And honestly, I love the way that you express through your visuals. And it makes so much sense that your background's in film too, because I always talk about how well you edit things and how well you just craft. Like, I know whoever is watching this right now, this is like a piece of art within itself.
Thank you.
So I appreciate your language too, and I speak it as well.
Yeah. It's always good to find.
Yeah.
It would be remiss of me if I don't mention music one time on a show that is based on radio. So how has music shaped your life?
Okay, before I say anything, I'm going to say this first. I'm going to say that I love hanging out without music sometimes. Ooh. And I didn't recognize I was doing that until somebody mentioned. And they were like, why do you hang out in silence? And I was like, oh, right. So not always that I include music in my just hangouts, but I do connect with music a lot. I think I love just finding an album. When I do listen to music, I love finding an album and just listen to the whole album. And I would do that over and over and over again because I just love the storyline that come with how each of the tracks are arranged. It's such a complete story of how that particular artist is trying to tell. And it's just the best way to respect the vision, right? And growing up, my dad, he's a musician, and he loved making videos. This is like before YouTube like really took off, and he would
innovator.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's amazing. He loves to play guitar and sing with me. So we would sing all these songs, all these like old high folk music together. I used to think it was like the cheesiest thing, and then now I'm just like I want to do that again. I want to just fly to him and being like, Dad, let's sing together. I think he sold his guitar. He was like in so much debt with speeding ticket and stuff. I don't think he has guitar anymore. Just really unfortunate. But my dad was really a big music person. He's like that cool dad. Like I would go into his like man cave, and he just loved fixing things. He like loves to go. The things that we love to do together is that we would go to the flea market every Sunday when I used to live in the same town that he did. And he would find all these vinyls and come back to his cabin. Come back to his man cave and then store them. And he had this like he would like take all these like vinyl. What is it? The vinyl player? Is there like a particular term that you call it?
I don't know why it's a record player, I think.
Record player, yeah. A record player, and there's this one that's like an antique one that's like super heavy. It's like it looks like a cabinet, right? And he like I came home. I think two years ago. I went there for Christmas. Or not this Christmas, but the past Christmas. He was like, oh, look at what I did to it. And he put like all these like LED lights inside of it. And like, so like when it plays, it would like start like light up. So it starts to light up and stuff. And he just loves all these like oldies music. He loves blues. He loves jazz. He loves country music. He sings country music. And like, that's what's wrong with you. But it's okay. No, I would tell this to like I was
I don't know. Everybody hates country music with a passion. Country music has some slaps. I'm with your dad.
So
I'm standing with your dad on this. There are
yeah,
some slaps here, there, and some places, but
there's a charm to it for sure. There's
yeah,
some charm. I think it's romantic.
there's something. It's there.
But yeah, my dad is a character, man. I
Yeah.
always have to show you a picture of him. But
Oh,
he is like, you look at his closet and you would think he's like some country like white like dude, because he had like all these like cowboys
yeah.
like jackets with like American flag, like, just
Yeah.
patched to the
Classic. Yeah.
back. Yeah, black leather, like all the cowboy boots. Like
Yeah.
he's just decked out constantly.
Tapped in.
And
Yeah.
honestly, that's where I get it from. I think just like
Mhm.
not being afraid of expressing my styles and
Yeah.
stuff. And yeah, my mom on the other hand, she doesn't listen to music. She like doesn't really. She's like the polar opposite of my dad.
That's
Like my dad's
interesting.
very expressive, and
Yeah.
like my mom is very expressive too, but in a different way. But
Yeah.
my dad was really big with music, and he would always send me like YouTube links and stuff. And until this day, I was just like,
Yeah.
here,
That's
listen to
fire.
this song.
Yeah. That thing about sitting in silence is. I was talking on my story about it today with a few friends of being, and I guess it applies to any job or any creative practice, about being kind of surrounded by what you do too much. Like I'll listen to podcasts for the entire workday, get home, edit podcasts, or listen to music, and then just be in that. So it's become a practice to sometimes drive home and not listen to anything. Or like you said, just being around people and trying not to let the conversations just blend in, and let that be what it is. Like let that be the music for the time. So it's interesting to hear that, because I think sometimes I'll be with some people and just be like, all right, I got to turn this on just so I feel safe, because it is kind of like a blanket, because it is that thing that I feel like I communicate with strongly. So it's very, very interesting to hear. Just it's like those things that are so simple that you kind of overlook them and you don't think about them because they should be obvious to you. It's just like sitting in silence with people is it's really cool. Oh, I think your mic's off.
Oh,
We're back.
I was like, I turned my mic off because I was like, if I were to make like funny noises, I didn't want to like to like be in here. But yeah, I was gonna say, right, because sometimes I'll be like,
No, you should make
yeah.
the noises. I've been thinking this whole time. I was like, I sound so monotone, just being like, yeah, but I'm not. I'm.
I was
I
told
have
with podcasts you're like supposed to not do that or something. Like
no. This
when
is a
someone,
this is a different
oh,
type of land. You
okay,
can do
okay,
whatever you
okay.
want. No, but I I have such strong outbursts and reaction. I remember I was in therapy, and it was like the first week of therapy. Me and my therapist were getting to know each other, and she was saying some very profound things. So in reaction, I was like, "Oh, wow!" And I was just like looking around, like she just did the most amazing crossover in a game. And she was like, "Hey, like, are you doing this for me?" And there was a moment where I was like, "Oh, I don't know if this is for you, or if I'm genuinely acting like that." And I had to sit and think about it, and realize
Hmm.
that I'm just a person that likes to make sounds, and I laugh really hard, and a lot of the things I do manifest physically. So when I'm listening to a song, I'm head banging and moving my legs in ways that
What?
humans
You're
shouldn't.
like that? Because when I met you in Basel, I was like,
Yeah.
wow, he's so stoic. I was
That
like,
but
he's
that's
so,
yeah, that's life, and then anxiety. So it
oh,
just was a lot of people, and I didn't know what was
not by
happening. So
choice.
yeah, it wasn't my choice. I would have been doing my thing if I could have. No.
Hmm.
But even at that point, I think now it's a very different situation, because I've learned to be aware of who I am and how I I can sit in things, but so yeah, make your noises because that's a part of you, and you know.
Yeah, why are they trying to kill our inner child, bro?
I don't know. It's
That's
very frustrating.
right. Huh. I mean, I think, if you're, yeah,
Yeah.
I want to make noises now.
No, this next
Let's.
this next 30 minutes is just all the noises we have.
Right, but I wanted to say, I was like,
Yeah.
people, I mean, I I think that we all communicate in different ways. Like
Yeah.
sitting in silence, right? There's
Yeah.
so much to be said about that, and
Yeah.
being comfortable in silence with someone is one of the most beautiful, sexiest things
Yeah.
you can do,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
And so more silence and more weird noises,
Yeah.
and I'm so into that. I'm so honestly, that might be my king. That's my king.
Silence. Say
Silence
nothing.
is my king.
It's like, delicious. So good.
Make one weird noise and
Yeah.
go. That's it. You can leave now.
Yeah. That's enough. Thank you. Thank you. No, it's so interesting because I think a lot of people feel like they have to fill the void and take up the space to feel like they're doing work. Like, and I know that it's not as simple, and that silence kind of is coming from a place. But I remember there was, because that's my favorite thing too. I love to do that. Like, I would rather just like sit with somebody at a park and like take a nap or something and just like talk and read and do all those things instead of like being at a bar because it's loud and I want to try to like connect with them and stuff. But
Yeah.
I think,
And
yeah,
right. And when I found myself
yeah,
when I would find myself in a space that has the polar opposite of that
yeah,
energy, I would feel choked up sometimes.
yeah,
I'm like, oh my God, there's just so much,
yeah,
and I'm just so grateful, of beings that I share space with where there's a flow of communication, right? Like
yeah,
I feel like
yeah,
I'm able to speak freely, and I'm
yeah,
able to just not say anything if I don't want
right,
to, and there's no force to like for a response or reaction,
right,
and in that way too, like, oh, what's appropriate reaction, right? Like what is like I think it becomes monotonous in a lot of ways
yeah,
where you're like, oh, this is an appropriate way to respond to this
yeah,
thing,
yeah,
um and how do we break away from the matrix
yeah.
if we only gonna do that,
At least,
oh
yeah, yeah. It's crazy. Even in this interview, I think as this is the first episode of the new season, I think there's a lot of things I wanted to implement in ways I wanted to come off, but I think through this conversation, remembering that I have to be the most authentic version of myself to really succeed at what I'm doing right now. And I can't try to attribute that to sitting a certain way or trying to cover up the way I laugh or the way I enjoy things. It's just like I gotta just make the weird noises and enjoy the silence, and that's a fire slogan there. I like
yeah,
that. You need to make
yes,
that T-shirt now so nobody steals it,
yes,
and
but
and then you see it and you're like,
as your
ah,
merch, yes,
yeah,
I would buy it, I would wear it.
that
Capitalism.
would,
No, I would support you though. It's different when you actually believe it. It's different when it's original.
no. Oh,
Oh my God.
that's funny.
No, I'm not here to claim I'm like the self love king or anything like that.
Mm.
Please cut that out. I don't know.
That was so good. That was so good
Yeah,
timing.
it's so good. Honestly, it's
Oh
so
man.
good, and I don't regret anything I said.
Yeah. So yeah, in closing, how would you by the end of the year want to see yourself?
I wrote this down somewhere, but I definitely want to be more. I want to be more cleansed and more clear minded
Mm,
in so many ways. So by the end of this year, I want to be this clear vessel that I'm able to channel what is needed for the future, for the greater good. Um, so that looks like, eating really well. That looks like consuming really just things that will enhance all of those things. So I think, yeah, just moving with clarity. I want to move with clarity more, and in that way, I think that there's a lot of, to think of how do we collectively move forward in the future. I think there's a lot of mobilization that happening and will happen, where there's going to be the end of a lot of the old systems. There already has been. I see that there's a lot of things that we just discard entirely, in terms of institutions that don't have people at their best interest, and just technologies that are advancing that don't have people in mind as well, and people's wellness and our well-being. So I think that we're in the I feel like we're at the brim of the dying paradigm and the new paradigm that's starting. And there's methodologies, of course, for us how to move forward, but I don't think that the answer is necessarily fully written out yet. There are things that I would love to see it disappear forever. And then there are things that I would love to see it happen, and then I think about, is this really it also? Like, is my imagination only as far as it could go based off of the past? And that's like, it's been such a theme in my mind where I would love to be more clear and cleansed so that I can imagine larger things, larger visions, and bringing that into a new paradigm.
Again, such an amazing answer, and it was such an amazing conversation. Just want to thank you again for being the first on the new season.
Thank you.
Very much enjoyed having known you and having gotten to finally meet you in person recently. And
yes, it was so nice. It was so fast.
It was very fast. That was a very anxious, anxiety-filled night. So much was happening. But I guess that is Basel, in a sense, just fast-paced, things moving, everybody doing their thing, But
would you go back to Basel again?
I think I would try to do Basel differently. I think this is my first year back in a long time, and it felt like the first time I had some, not ego, but I had some kind of confidence walking into Basel. And I wish I would have just experienced more. I think I got stuck in anxiety just because I got overstimulated, and that's what it was. But I think I wish I would have pushed myself to go see more people and hang out a little more and take off more time from work and just enjoy my favorite thing in the world, and not deny myself because I'm scared I'm gonna have to say hi to too many people. So I wish for next year I'm just going and I'm just sitting there and I'm everybody come hug me, please. Like, just let's talk about something. And yeah, but other than that, I think I loved it, and it was a really cool weekend, and yeah, it was cool. What about you? Did you enjoy this Basel? Was it different?
Yeah, I think it was different for me for sure, because I was like coming down with a pretty nasty flu slash
Mm,
cold.
yeah.
But the first time I ever experienced Basel, it was, in a sense, it was the best
Mm,
trip ever, because it was
mm,
like with like a huge group of femmes, and we were
yeah.
just like out there, and
That's how you have to do it. I feel like that's
Yeah, it's like a whole crew, a whole
yeah,
gang of,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and I remember we were like eating at some place, and someone was like, "Oh, you're like the poster. Y'all are like the poster of Art Basel," and like that's how we felt too. We like showed out, like,
They're like, yeah,
and
what's
like
up? How y'all doing?
yeah. So it was like it's very cute, but and then when I went back, I was by myself, you know, and I was with my brother, so it was like that whole collective energy wasn't there, and I was like, oh wait, I thought I was gonna like feel the same, and like, yeah, who I was then like definitely was a match to the chaotic energy of Basel. Even though during the time I found myself with like with my crew and really, you know, like at amazing like conversations, like panel discussions and stuff. But this time it was cut short. I think that was the only night that I went out, and I was like, oh my god, it was just so much for me. But
yeah.
You feel like we talked like, did we cover everything?
I feel like,
Are you tired?
I am a serial note taker, so I feel like I think this conversation became so much more than I could have hoped for. So I feel like it captured everything I wanted to try and say, and I learned so much about you. So I'm very happy with how it turned
Really?
out.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say thank you for being on the show, and then we're gonna stop. Okay. So I had to get back in. I had to get back in the podcaster character mode. This is
Be normal right now.
Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. Wait, is this it? Okay.
That was my. You didn't feel the professional podcaster energy coming off of me in that moment. I feel like that was the best I could do.
Thank you. Yes. Okay, dude.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being on the show today. It's not good. It's not gonna get better. I promise you, it's not
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Just kidding.